if you've listened to our show for any amount of time, you've heard of this, but we want to go a little bit deeper. And it is strategy number 1, backdoor Roth conversions. Now, I think we ought to level set here first, Brian. We love Roth assets. We love tax. We love them so much. We make them part of our financial order of operation. Can you hold the thing up? We make them part of our financial. They are step 5. So whenever we have an opportunity to get tax-free assets inside of your financial plan, we like to jump all over doing that.
Well, there's a lot to love. I mean, if you think about it, they have no RMDs. There's, if you go with the right custodian, low expenses and fees, tax-free growth and distributions. When I talk about the power of a dollar 88 times over, I think a lot of people would be shocked when you get to your journey at 35, 40 years into the future. You're going to see there's a good chance that 90+% of your account is actually the growth of your portfolio if you started early enough. So how cool would it be if that was actually tax-free growth?
Amazing. Not only that, you have a wide selection of investments. When it comes to Roth IRA, you get to choose what you invest in. You have a flexibility with your contributions. You can choose to put money in or not to choose put money in. You can put some money in or you can max them out. And it's not tied to your specific employer. So there are a lot of pros, a lot of benefits of Roth IRAs, but there is one caveat, one thing that you need to be aware of before you jump in whole hog.
Well, of course, the government, if they're going to give you tax-free growth, there has to be a catch. And the two big catches are they're going to have limits on how much you can contribute. And the second thing is they're going to have income limits.
That's
meaning
right.
This is not eligible for people whose income goes up beyond a certain level. For individuals who are single, it's 146 to 161. For married couples, it's 230,000 all the way up to 240,000. That's where it phases out.
So you're probably out there saying, okay, guys, I hear this. I love Roth. I love the idea of doing this. But man, I make over that income, or when my spouse and I, when we combine our incomes, we're over those limits. Is there a solution for me? And in fact, there is. Enter the backdoor Roth contribution, the backdoor Roth conversion strategy. Now, how does it work? What are the mechanics? Well, it's fairly simple. What you do is you open up a traditional IRA, a regular IRA, and you're going to make a non-deductible contribution to that. So this year in 2024, you can put $7,000 in if you're under 50. So you're going to put $7,000 into a non-deductible traditional IRA. And then because that money is after tax, when you go to convert it to Roth, you don't pay any taxes. Now, a lot of people ask, well, what happens if I don't convert it? What if I just left it in the traditional IRA? Well, your money would still grow tax deferred, but then when you go to pull those dollars out of that traditional IRA, you'll pull out your contributions tax-free, but all of those earnings, all of that growth is still going to be taxed. That's why we love you being able to convert it to Roth, so then everything becomes tax-free.
I always like people to know kind of how these things came to be, because it's not like the legislators got together and they said, you know what would be cool is if we named something the Backdoor Roth IRA. And the reason these things exist, and I'm old enough and been doing this long enough that I remember when this legislation changed. In 2010, the tax laws changed to where now Roth conversions, meaning turning IRA assets, traditional IRA assets, or rollover IRA assets, any type of IRA asset into a Roth. It used to have $100,000 a year, meaning your income couldn't be over $100,000 to even have this as an option. Well, in 2010, they ripped off the income limit, meaning anyone could do a Roth conversion as long as you're willing to pay the income taxes. So the super, sweet sauce of this thing is that since you're making a non-deductible contribution, meaning you didn't take the tax deduction, you have basis. And then when you take advantage of that tax law change from 2010 and you convert it into a Roth, voila, you just made a backdoor Roth contribution. So it's kind of the super secret name that is kind of everybody now knows, but it was never designed to be this way. And the government has actually tried to take this away a few times, but it has so far survived, and you ought to check this out.
So how do you know if this is the right choice for you? Well, the first thing you have to define is, can you do it? And so question number 1 is, are you above the Roth income limit? If the answer to that question is no, you don't have to do a backdoor Roth. If your income is below the Roth threshold, you ought to just consider making direct Roth contributions. There's no point in making this any more complicated than it has to be.
Yeah, I mean, because this is a multiple step transaction versus just making an IRA contribution. It's just a transfer, make the contribution, but you just can't exceed the income limits. Now, the second thing, and this is an important one, I get a text message from a really close friend. He goes, man, I've been listening to your content, and I got so excited about these backdoor Roth contributions. I ripped, and I just made a backdoor Roth contribution. I said, well, wait a minute. I remember us having quite a few conversations, usually with a bourbon in hand or something, and you know, and I always told you, hey, you have that rollover IRA out there. You can't do it. And he goes, You can't have other assets, other IRAs. What? And I was like, oh gosh. I was like, no, you call me on these things because this is where it gets complicated. So if you can only have Roth, after tax, or inherited IRAs, if you have any other type of IRA, like a SEP IRA, a simple IRA, a rollover IRA where you had an old 401k and you rolled it into an IRA, it blows up this entire scenario. And a lot of people, now look, nobody is going to stop you. If you call your custodian and say, I want to turn that IRA and convert a portion of this into Roth, they'll be like, no problem. How much you want to do? They don't have stop measures to keep you. It just means you're creating a tax liability issue for yourself. So it's a trap or something to be very aware of.
Yeah, some really easy math here. Let's assume that you had $93,000 in an IRA rollover and you decide you're going to do this backdoor Roth. And so you put $7,000 non-deductible into a traditional IRA. What the IRS is going to say is of the whole $100,000 of IRA assets that you have, only 7% of that conversion will be tax-free. So if you were to convert even that $7,000 you put in, only 7% of it's going to be tax-free. So you cannot do it, or you cannot do it tax-free if you have other IRA assets. So then the question becomes, all right, I know how to do it. When should I do it? When does this make sense? And our general thought is, if you can, then you probably should. If you are at the place in your financial journey where you have the ability to make backdoor Roths and your income is over the threshold and it's a mechanism for you to get $7,000 or maybe $14,000 for a household and tax-free assets, it's probably a strategy that you should take advantage of.
I also would encourage you, this is one of those, where are you at in the financial order of operations? If you go to moneyguy.com/resources, you can download your own copy. If you really want to deep dive into all the origins of the financial order of operations, I encourage you to go to moneyguy.com/millionaire mission. Brand new book I have coming out in May. But pay attention to where you are, because backdoor Roths fall under step 5 of the financial order of operations.
And so when are some times that you shouldn't do this? We already mentioned the first one. If you have any other IRA assets to trigger the pro rata rule, this will not be tax-free, so be mindful of that. And if you're not 100% sure you're doing this right, maybe this is not something you should go at on your own. Maybe you should seek guidance from a professional, because these can be complicated transactions, and oftentimes we see them reported incorrectly on tax returns. The Form 8606s get jacked up. They end up being reported as taxable. You don't catch it. You end up paying taxes you did not need to pay. So make sure you understand what you're doing, how to see it through all the way to your tax return.
Let me go ahead and give everybody a heads up, because I have written so many tax letters to the IRS to clarify these Roth conversion strategies, because here's the way this scenario plays out. Your custodian is going to send you a notice, a 1099 at the end of the year, 1099-R, and it's going to show that you had a $7,000 distribution, and then it's going to say taxable portion, $7,000 distribution, and then you're going to be like, oh my gosh, these guys just created a taxable contribution for me, and you're going to give this form to your tax preparer. They're going to file it as a taxable contribution, and nobody's going to notice that there's this little box that's checked on that 1099-R that says taxable amount not determined. And that's why it's on you and your tax preparer to report that, no, this was a contribution of a non-deductible IRA, traditional IRA. We then converted it and had full tax basis. So there is a zero tax report and tax requirement. You'll have to show that you took a distribution of this amount, but zero of it was taxable because you structured it right and you reported it right. It's so easy to prove with the 5329s, as well as just you having the statements with the transactions, but this gets screwed up a ton, and this is why sometimes it's better to have somebody to help you navigate the complexity of this.